Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Associate Professor, Program Director of Communication, Media, and Ethics, and I am taking a moment to talk about some ideas surrounding how we present ourselves in a digital space, right? Place and space is always important. We'll be communicating with people throughout our lives in person, but we will also increasingly be showcasing our digital presence. And so the more we engage in digital communication with others, the more we want to take into consideration how we should present ourselves. Going to take a couple of minutes and distinguish between a few different forms of digital communication and how we can think strategically about presenting ourselves, maximizing our potential as a public communicator, even in private digital spaces. Because let's face it, people, these digital spaces are not very private anymore. Am I right? I'm right. Okay, so first, let's distinguish between some general concepts of digital presentation that we come across. Let's start at the most basic level, okay? And when I say the most basic level, I'm talking about one of the fundamental courses you will take in your Gen Ed's curriculum at most universities. That is the fundamentals of public speaking. So, in a public speaking context, right? When you take an online class or perhaps you have a major presentation, it doesn't even have to be a public communication, public speaking type course. It could be some other form, maybe a senior course. If you have a major presentation to give, you should always consider presenting with the full body available as part of that communication exchange. Now, many courses are different, and feel free to always reach out to your instructors, but in a public speaking context, and I'm familiar with variations on the public speaking course across the spectrum, right? Years of experience in various institutes. The standard norm is that you're showcasing your entire body, because what's important for us to consider is the physical performance of the speaker or presenter, right? Our body is part of the presentation itself. This is why we have points allocated for delivery or delivery style. How we present is as important as what we present on. So you want to take that into consideration. You want to have the bulk of your body on camera, right? Able to be sort of assessed as part of that process. And so you want to frame yourself within that context. That's also important, or maybe tricky, when you get to the point in speech giving where you deal with a lot of visual aids, and certainly in instances where the visual aid is a heavy part of a speech, you want to have yourself and the visual aid kind of in tandem, in a companion setting, a situation in the speech. That's why the landscape mode, when you're videoing, can be handy, because you can kind of do side by side, right? Have a screen near you or just behind you, what have you, and then yourself kind of in space, right, to one side or the other. And, we lose a bit of that luxury. Something's usually cut off if we're in portrait mode, right? In terms of the framing, right? So landscape, portrait, landscape, portrait. If it's landscape, you can be here, your visual aid can be here, and you're both in scene. Portrait, sometimes the camera gets so close that the body is here, and then maybe the visual aid gets cut off, or the camera scans over, and then we lose the person, that sort of thing. So we can almost think about that public speaking situation as cinematic, right? That is to say, cinema or film, the film medium. And we're all familiar with film, but films are shot in a kind of landscape method. Okay, so that's public speaking, right? Those are formal presentations. And we definitely should think about things like how we formally present ourselves. Let's put it this way. This is an easy way to remember. If the speech is worth a lot of points, typically those speeches toward the end of a course, then you want to be presenting your best effort. You want to present yourself in as much a formal manner as possible. And that goes a long way to showcase that the effort is there. But also, this is a cognitive plus for the speaker as well. It's important to recognize that there is a positive function when we dress for success. We're putting on a mindset that we're going to do our best. Think about it in these terms. Would you go into a job interview kind of in your sweats with sort of the hoodie over your head or the cap over covering your face, or would you kind of put that best effort forward? And 99% of cases, we would choose that former, right? Former. We understand the necessity there. So approach your speeches in the same manner. Dress in a way that's going to give you, this is the other aspect, confidence. There is such a thing as speaker confidence, and you can maximize your speaker confidence through the way that you ready yourself, right? It's like almost like a performer putting on their wardrobe for a presentation. It's almost like the rituals that athletes undergo. Do professional athletes, even collegiate athletes, do they go out on the field in their casual street attire with flip-flops, right? Sockless or whatever to perform? No. They have specific equipment, and that is for their safety, is to maximize their presentation. It's part of the rules, right? So we can think about public speaking in that same manner. Now, let me pause, shift gears, and talk about a secondary area of presentation. And that would be the general classroom activity. Now, because we're all online, we're not necessarily meeting at the same time. In fact, the majority of the time, we're not meeting at the same time. This is what we call asynchronous learning. And we're rather than a synchronous or live experience where we communally come together, we're coming together in our own place and time, right? It is different and apart, right? It is asynchronous, meaning it's convenient for me now to record this message. It will be convenient for you later to receive that message or review that message. And so this asynchronous learning has certain benefits, but then there's ways we can maximize it, all right? So in the context of activities that are online asynchronous, in some instances, they might be referred to as video discussion activities. In other instances, they might be referred to as impromptu exercises, right? The online video engagement exercise takes on many names and many forms. But what's important to remember is some ways that it benefits us, and we can enhance our experience through full commitment to those. All right. So here we go. Final thoughts on that video engagement, whether we're approaching it as a video discussion or an impromptu exercise, or perhaps just a report, a prompt in of itself. In these instances, we can still think about the use of things like foreground, right? What's before the camera versus backgrounds. We can think about the power, the persuasiveness of lighting, of set design, of all these elements. But of course, they're somewhat secondary. What we're ultimately interested in is our voice, our communication of our thoughts and ideas, and getting that message out to others, okay? And so here's a couple of importances to keep in mind during these types of engagements. You want to remember that in a video discussion, you don't have to back way up, right? The formal tendencies of placing your whole body within the frame is not necessary. It's not expected, and so feel free to sit. Right. In fact, many of the organizational conferences and conferencing meetings that take place today that require digital connection rather than face-to-face connection, and I mean that in a physical sense, is that your profile is available, right? So we're thinking this head shoulders area up to whatever range that you feel comfortable is going to be a plus for us in our communication styles. Now, sometimes it can be a real problem if I'm trying to give us the old extreme close-up, as Wayne, right? Wayne's World used to tell us. That can get distracting, or maybe it takes away, maybe it's confusing. It can pose a number of questions, but get at a comfortable distance that's going to allow you to articulate yourself. Now, I've had enough experiences with this in the past to understand there are various ways that people have chosen or elected to communicate in a kind of casual setting, in a video discussion setting. And for the most part, myself, instructors like me, we tend to be pretty flexible. But there are certain detriments to overly casual instances of digital communication. And just one example that comes to mind might be the old, maybe laying down, right? Laying on the bed, sort of barely lit room, right? Where we're trying to kind of fulfill that assignment. That can kind of trip us up in a couple of ways. First of all, we're not really thinking quickly and clearly because we're not necessarily positioning our posture as well as we could. And there is something to that chemistry, right? That body chemistry of understanding that I am in a position where I'm trying to concentrate and deliver an important message. And I think if we're just kind of casually laying down, it doesn't always come off as well as it could. I don't think it's often a tell sign, right? Maybe even that the effort is low. So just keep that in mind. Remember though, public speeches, right? Public speaking speeches, more of a formal opportunity to present, to engage, and so on. Other activities that are part of a class, whether it's video discussion or impromptu exercises or video responses. These are semi-casual opportunities to engage, although it never hurts to put in a little effort, as we shall see. All right. Thank you for taking the time to listen.